Go.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. My name is Steele Greye. I'm going to be your host for today. And before we get into everything, I'm going to give you a little quote that I scribed down here for you. I think it is so powerful, especially on the Health and Vitality Day. The quote is this. It's by A.J. Marreri. It says, "So many spend their health gaining wealth and then have to spend their wealth to regain their health." Roll that tape. Yes, indeed. The air drums are going. The day has begun. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Steele Greye, and it's that day again. The day that we speak about wellness, speak about health, speak about vitality. And on this day, I have something really special for you. And I say it's special, not that we haven't heard it before, but because it's those little things that we forget. This is kind of almost like a part two from last week, because I was doing some copious research on different quadrants of health and wellness, different ways that people um, gauge it, speak of it, deal with it, so on and so forth. And I came up with this amazing concept, the 12 dimensions of wellness, or the 12 points of wellness. It's spoken a lot of different ways. And I just want to start out by actually saying what they are, right? I'm going to start out that way because I think you'll get a kick out of how simple it is, but also we have to ask ourselves, are we practicing these things? So for me, the last presentation I did was a presentation where I gave you some things that were things that you might not have heard, or some interesting things, or some outside of the box things. These are more solid things that I think everyone can kind of grab onto or to understand. It's quite exciting. I love them because I practice, I would say 80% of these with much consistency. And there's a couple that, we have some difficulty with, or some challenge with. And Grand Rising, Andrea, nice color. Really nice. Good to see you. Um, so again, to briefly reiterate, these are the 12 points of wellness, or the 12 dimensions of wellness. Incidentally, I made sure that I wrote this down. This was developed in 1975 by a man who I've never heard of before, who was said to be the father of wellness, John W. Tranvis, which I had never heard that name before. So this is why I read. This is why I do the research. This is why I look for things that are interesting, that can help myself and others make sure that I come here to you with an interesting presentation. So again, these points, I'm going to say them one by one, and they are, quite frankly, reiterating that this is the basis of our wellness, or if we were to assess our wellness, this would be the things that interact, or the 12 fundamental things that come together to make this mandala, if you will, of wellness, right? So these are the 12 things. Self-responsibility and love is one thing, interestingly enough. Breathing, sensing, eating, moving, feeling, thinking, playing and working, communicating, intimacy, finding meaning, and transcending. Those are the 12 things, right? Now, I would highly advise you to look this up online or write those 12 that I just said, because I again, they sound simple because basically they are, but I was fascinated by the first one because it was together self-responsibility and love, right? So when we speak about um, self-responsibility or taking responsibility, you don't always hear love in that one, right? But how can we take self-responsibility if we don't love ourselves? So it makes total sense, right? Again, I'm reading these things to kind of uh, reprogram some things in my head that were a little bit shaken around or pushed to the side by a couple different things that happened to me in my life. Let's say a little bit of mild traumatic things that happened, right? So as I look upon this and we talk about self-responsibility and love, um, we talk about these being the primary or two of the primary foundations. And it's interesting because it says that we tend to put ourselves last. We tend to take care of our loved ones first and then go to ourselves. I remember a person that I know saying, I don't care as much about me as I do about these two people. And she was referring to her husband and her son. And I remember talking to her about that and saying, okay, like as long as my guys are okay, then I'm okay. And I'm here to kind of debunk that a little bit because if you think about the strongest mother you know, which is probably your mother, you will always say to yourself, most probably, man, she's always looking out for me. I want to look out for her first. My mother's that way. She's always been that way. She's always looked out for other people in this realm of self responsibility and love. So it's interesting because you, through self love, you learn how to deal with your own responsibility, right? Your own things. The second one that I said, of course, was breathing, right? Of course, breathing, the most essential process in life, right? If we're not breathing, we're not here, right? And I was looking at this has like a little breakdowns of this, and it said that um, the mitochondria of our cells, which is it's basically the essential producing energy for the mitochondria of our cells, and it says we tend to be unaware of our breathing process and the benefits that it comes to. You ever notice if you're having a bad situation or something's going on and someone's with you, they go, okay, breathe, right? You forgot to breathe in that moment. We're breathing all the time. But isn't it interesting when someone says, okay, breathe, you go, okay, right, I'm good. And somehow that breathing cuts through the the situation. We've all been in that situation, right? We know we're breathing, but somehow in that realm of things, right? And it says mindful breathing is like a reset button, helping to promote relaxation, calming your emotions, focusing your mind, and heightening your sensory awareness, allowing you to be more present. Presence, one of my favorite words. I use it all the time. Everyone on this platform knows that the presence is everything. Oh my goodness. When we lose our presence, and boy, have I done it quite a few times, I always go, what are we doing right now? What are we doing right now, Chase? What are you doing right now? And I snap back to it, right? The next one I said was sensing, right? Using our senses, seeing, touching, smelling, feeling. I get most of my sensing or most of my things that are coming to me from a sensory perspective from outside. That's just me. When I say outside, I don't mean specifically outside of myself. I just mean nature, right? And so, any of you who follow me on Instagram know that I have some Instagrams where I'm hugging a tree, right? That's where I get a lot of my energy from. I go to Central Park. I have a special two trees that I go to, and I hug each one of them individually. And I say a little blessing or so and so forth. And I usually do it live on my Instagram. So you can see different videos of it on there. It's great. I really, really love it. But the points were emphasizing that we spend more time being aware of the things that are sensory. Like when you're walking down the street, what do you see? Do you see trees? You see the concrete, cars are passing, the birds are chirping. You might feel a breeze touching your face. And I feel like, and I'm guilty of this, when we go too fast, all of those things go by us. All of them. It's like unbelievable. We show up in the world and something happens. You ever hang out with somebody and you're talking to them, and then you look at them like in a specific place and they're not there, and they said, "What? I'm sorry. What did you say?" And I'm like, "Where did you go?" This happened to me last week. Where did you go? And they were like, "Oh, I was just like something came in my mind. You triggered something, and I started thinking about something else." I believe that we rob ourselves by not being present in the moment, right? And we all do it, right? I'm definitely not perfect at this. I'm good at it, but I'm not perfect. Um, the next one of the tenets is eating. We speak about this all the time, and wouldn't you know it, as I looked at these 12 points or dimensions, it once again stated eating plant-based. Why? Because we're eating the plants which come from the environment. The environment is feeding us anyway, whether we like it or not, through the air, through the sun, so on and so forth. And incidentally, just to double back for a second, when I was speaking about the trees, oh, this word, and I can't remember it. It'll come back to me, and I promise I'll tell you on another episode. But there's a certain uh, gas that it emits from trees when you get close to them and you hug them that help our system internally. And that was one of the first reasons why I started doing it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, they're there, they're solid, and you get to reap the benefits of them, and they get to reap the benefits of us as we're breathing onto them. Fascinating. So as we talk about this and the plants and so on and so forth, uh, on here it says if you choose to eat more plant-based, you are truly choosing your self-care, right? Physical, mental, emotional, all these things are happening within eating somewhat plant-based. And I thought, see how amazing that is? Why are we um, many times reaching outside for all these things, these medicinal things or whatever that aren't obviously, plant-based or made for us to solve the things when we have the answers right here, right? Fascinating, really, really fascinating. Also, moving, which is, I'm a big fan of moving, right? When we're moving, our body gets to use those good things that we just talked about, right? Another one of those tenets. I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fifth one, which is moving. And I know this has kind of gone away for most people that live in major cities because they're driving. Just the simple act of taking a walk, 1 mile. 1 mile there, that means you got to come 1 mile back, right? So 2 miles, right? I'm telling you, changes the vibration so good in such a great way. It almost, you almost won't believe it when you do it, because I can't describe it to you if you're not doing it on a regular basis. And I definitely walk way more than a mile a day being in New York City. So I wanted to reiterate that. Also, this one was interesting to me because the word feeling came up. And I'm going to read a little bit of what it said because I thought about it and some things shifted in my head. It said, feelings are your emotions. Feelings are not the same as thoughts. Although the two are deeply intertwined for any given event, you respond by both feeling and thinking. Yet most of us give priority to our thoughts about a subject and often ignore our feelings. It is no wonder that so many of us do not feel in touch with our feelings. Being in touch with our feelings. So if we are focusing on increasing our emotional intelligence, it's saying that will give us the ability to identify and manage our own emotions and recognize the emotions of others. It's interesting because that, of course, ties back into breathing again, right? All these are interlocked, and that's what fascinates me about them. I want to just go over them briefly. Interestingly enough, on the list, it goes from feeling to thinking, right? And a lot of people say, well, man, I feel a certain way, or like, what are you thinking about? Oh, I'm just thinking about how I feel. Like everybody interchanges them, right? Back and forth, back and forth. So under thinking, it's basically saying that we can't even seem to turn our minds off when we lay down to sleep at night, because we're processing, we're thinking, right? About maybe sometimes how we feel, right? But thinking is how it relates to the physical and the mental health and other like creative ways or options to do it. Basically, in the last sentence on this says, New research has shown the brain has the capacity to continuously change throughout our life. So we can actually rewire how we're thinking or how we're feeling. I thought that was really interesting. Like a lot of people are like, well, that's who I am. That's what I did. Can't change that. And I'm like, hmm, I've never been a proponent of not changing your mind because there's so many examples of people who've changed their mind that it's just crazy. You can go on the internet and read stories all day about that. Next, playing and working. I really love that they put these two together because I'm one of the fortunate people that can say I'm always playing while I'm working, right? Being a musician. But I don't call it work and I don't call it a job. I call it playing, but I call it more delivering my magic or delivering my tools. I never call it working. People say, when are you working next? I'm playing. Or someone says, what do you do for work, Chase? You seem like you're really happy. And I say, well, I don't work, I play. They're like, oh, what do you mean? And then we have this conversation about that, right? So to say playing and working in the same dimension or the same points as far as wellness, it says we spend the majority of our time focused on work and daily tasks with too little time allowed for play. What passes for play for most adults is more likely to be escape activities instead of engaging in the joyful, creative, spontaneous play that is vital to your well being. Balancing work and play enables us to recharge and supports personal health and well being. In this space, we get to learn about the balance of our life. It's funny because I say to a lot of people, I personally say this to almost everyone that I speak to in the first maybe few communications that we have. I say, what do you do for play? What do you like to do? What do you do when you're not working? You would be so surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, all these high level thinkers here, how many people look at me and say, play? I don't look, I don't have any time for play. All right. I got my mother, my father, my kids, my dog, my job. I barely have time to breathe. You know how often I hear that response? Like 70% of the time, right? So I was really happy to see playing and working in one quadrant as it relates to wellness. The word communicating came up next. And in my opinion, what choice do we have but to communicate, right? If we don't communicate, everything balls up inside us, right? And I always say to people, always have somebody to speak to that speaks your language. I don't mean Spanish, French, Italian, or Chinese. I mean someone that will listen, right? Someone that listens to you. I have some great people in my life that do that, and I want to shout out Rashida because she's one of my main rocks in life. I mean, man, I get emotional when I think about talking to Rashida. But thank you. I just want to give you that shout out. But communicating. And the second part of this says, in this dimension, we learn to improve our listening skills and to better understand the breakdowns in communication that can occur. We also learn to create for more positive internal dialogues as what we constantly tell ourselves plays a big role in influence of our personal well-being. What did you say to yourself this morning when you woke up? Do you remember what you said to yourself as you communicated with yourself? I know exactly what I said when I got up this morning. And there were thoughts of well-being, thoughts of giving a proper presentation, and also thanking myself for arriving again, right? Getting up again, being in the place again where I can create, where I can be of service to the world. That's where I was. And here I am, right? Okay, so the last three are intimacy, right? When we speak of intimacy, we're not talking about physical and sexual intimacy first and foremost. We're talking about intimacy in general, or the intimacy. There was a sentence in here. The intimacy. This expands our possibilities for deepening intimacy in our lives. We learn that the foundation of intimacy is trust, which allows for authentic communication. When I think about people that I trust, I can call them happy, crying, really, really like over the top elated, and they just take it. They just take it. They don't second guess me, whatever. When I know I'm not around a trusting person, I'll say something and they'll take their thing and they'll put it on me. They'll say, well, I mean, that's gonna be tough. You can't really do that. That's really hard. There's a lot of people, and I'm like, oh shoot, oh man, we're not in the same channel. I can't take that on with you right now. So when I think about this intimacy, man, it's a big, big topic, and I'm glad that it made the list because we're always balancing this intimacy thing, whether it's with a colleague or it's with a lover or a partner or a husband and wife, or it's with our family. It's like always the thing, how intimate can we be? How much can I release to you through authenticity? Whew, it's a really big thing. So lastly, or the last two, one of them is finding meaning. And when you think about finding meaning, my goodness, whew, it says, well, who am I and why am I here? Contemplating and living in those questions can bring a deeper meaning. I don't know how many of you say that or think that or even want to think about that. Great question. Ask yourself one of those two questions. Who am I and why am I here? Trust and believe. Lastly, on the list, transcending. Transcending basically says has many faces, the experience of being in a state of flow, the moment of overcoming, crossing the invisible barrier from being from autopilot to being awake, from saying no to life to saying yes to life. Transcending is the dimension of spirituality, faith, and expressing our connection to something greater than ourselves. That's my favorite part. What's greater than me and how can I get to that thing? Who can I hang out with that's better than me that can get me to that place? I want to play basketball. Let me call up Jordan. I want public speaking. Let me call up Les Brown. I want to learn how to make some stuff. Let me go and call one of the most top chefs in New York, see if I can sit in on whatever. Very, very important to transcend. I would love to hear what you have to say, Rashida.
I am, trust me. Ah, my goodness. Thank you so much. Grand rising, everyone.
I do
Grand
trust
rising.
you. That's the thing.
I am so, so proud of you. I am so full. It's just like you open a book and you say, okay, I'm going to send all this message to Rashida. I'm going to send this to my dear sister. I love her so much that this is who she are. I am so, so happy that you bring up all those 12 points and I take all of them. I utilize all of them.
I know you do.
I live by them and also implement it.
Right.
And let me better phrase it. I walk the walk.
I know you do.
Talk the talk. And trust me, when I see people coming to me, they stop. They stop because they say, oh no, she's not going to pick up. As a matter of fact, the vibration that I give out, they just stop. They say, no, she's not going to even listen to me. And they're right. I'm not going to listen to your BS. I am no BS with no one.
Correct.
And the thing is that the love, the intimacy, the understanding, the knowing what is your purpose, waking up in the morning and knowing that, oh, I am so, so full of bliss. I am so full of consciousness and awareness that I been granted one more day to my calendar. Wake up, I do my yoga, I do my breathing, I do my facial. I just love me because that's what I wanted to show and to share with other people. Or eating, like what Gio will say, eat the tree. If it's plant-based, you're gonna go, just eat the tree. And this, I'm telling you, each 12 points, hugging the tree. Right now, my tree them is covered with snow. And I still connect with them. That's the connection that I have with nature. Thank you so much, my dear brother. Oh my goodness, it's like, I hope even half of it that somebody would take away,
half. Yep.
And even half, and we implement it, practice it. Just digest it. Just feel like you have it in your plate and you have your utensil, and you're gonna be okay. This is love. This is charisma. Listen, trust me. This is so deep. Thank you very much for the topic. Thank you from from my heart to your heart. You know that I love you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I love you back. I feel like right after you talk, I should have played Wake Up Everybody. No more sleeping in bed. What's that song again? Oh man, if I could have played that right now, that would have been so perfect. Um, anyway, 12 points of wellness. If you want to dig a little deeper into this, I found a woman online. Um, her name is Catherine Stoll, I think, Stolle. She's a wellness coach, and I did a lot of research with her on her page. And then, of course, the name I told you before, the John W. Tranvis, who's supposedly the pioneer and father of wellness. I have never heard that name before. So this is why I'm always reading. But um, oh, does anyone else have anything else they want to say? Anyone? Just want to make sure before I move in the direction of closing out. Anyone? Okay. So it's interesting how in life we have the tools in front of us and we don't use them all the time. We're all guilty of that on some level. But to put these 12 things out and just move the pendulum a little bit in your brain was really my intention. So I would ask all of you to write these down if you can. I'm going to say them again so that on the replay you can go through them. Self-responsibility and love, breathing, sensing, eating, moving, feeling, thinking, playing and working, communicating, intimacy, finding meaning, transcending, right? It's basically you know, an emotional, physical cocktail for your life, right? To have, you know, put the dots on each one of those. Some days you hit all of them, some days you don't. Years ago, I did a seminar. Um, there was a book called The Diamond Cutter. I'm going to drop that book. Anyone wants to read an amazing book. What's the guy's name? Geshe Michael something. It's called The Diamond Cutter. Long story short, a man did a seminar in his home, and it was free. And he lived right across the street from where the towers used to be. And I did the seminar for free. He had to do it for free because he came from a year of training at this place. That was one of his things. He had to do it for free to see who would come in. And in that time, there were things very much like these 12 things. But the fascinating thing about it was that, and I said the things around us are free. There were 50 people in this man's like $4 million 10th floor place when we started. 50. In 3 weeks, there were 12, right? I stayed through the whole thing. I have the book, I have notes coming out of my ears from that time, whatever. And I remember him saying to me, when you move too fast, you miss the things that are right in front of you. That's what I feel about the 12 points or the dimensions or the points of wellness. You always miss the things that are right in front of you, and you think, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. And all the things I can look around my room right now, all the books, the instruments, the things that I need to keep me well are right here. Go into the other room, plant-based things, right? So I hope that finds you well. I hope that reached you in a very visceral way. Even if you take a few things away from today, it's better than nothing, right? And I see the faces and the looks on the people's faces that I can see on camera, and I can feel you taking some of this in, of many of which I know you know already. But the reminder, right? So, of course, now we go into our tenets, which are very close to those tenets. It all works together. It's amazing how it all works together. Of course, I was thinking about that when I was researching these 12. I was like, wow, this is what we talk about on the Daily Huddle, right? So if you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna close out now with our tenets here in the Daily Huddle. First and foremost, love, right? Love out loud, love harder than you have before. Live out loud harder than you before, right? Laugh like you've never laughed before, right? I know a lot of people that can laugh, Rashida. Um, and move, move. Move your body. If I'm talking to you right now and you're like, oh my God, Chase, I'm so overweight. I hate moving. I just don't like it. Just move a little. Just move in the direction that you haven't moved before. I would say, remember that 1 mile. I tell a lot of people, walk that 1 mile. You know why? Because you get 2 out of it, right? Remember that. Also, eat mostly plant-based. If you can, give it a shot. It's the beginning of the year. Take about 4 or 5 days, eat mostly plant-based, see how it works out for you, right? Also, stress less. The stress has no place in your body. If it stays there too long, there's no amount of words that I can explain to you to tell you what can happen. So let it go, push it to the side, right? Also, check yourself. Make sure that your assumptions are definitely not there for too long. Challenge all of them. You're definitely larger, wider, and more expansive than you could ever imagine. I said it. I just said it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you all. I'm Chase Steele Greye, and I will see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you.
Excellent
Thank you,
job.
family.
Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Mons on the open mind tonight.
One